since the year 2000, Ghana has lost half of its forest cover. Soil erosion is widespread, fish stocks are declining, and the effects of artisanal mining, industrial waste, fertilizers is resulting in widespread pollution. So for the small scale farmers up in the north, who lack irrigation, who lack training and equipment to deliver modern and more sustainable farming practices, they're being faced with with these impacts. They're at the front line of these impacts, experiencing declining soil quality, floods, droughts, making them more vulnerable than ever. So all of this feeds a vicious cycle, with many of those people forced to seek alternative livelihoods that may then further degrade the environment. They might look to deforestation to produce and sell charcoal. They might get involved in the illegal artisanal mining that involves lots of sort of toxic chemicals and metals. And of course, many of them rely on their children marrying and working young to support the family income, all at the cost of their educations and futures, which is why for AfriKids, environment is now one of 5 cross-cutting themes threaded through our strategy focused on education, child protection and health. So in delivering our core programming now we are trying to support families and communities to adapt and mitigate these impacts of climate change.
It's actually interesting listening to Charlie, because we're suffering from a lot of the same issues, a lot of the same climate related issues that are feeding into social issues. And our environment projects and all of our projects really kind of try and look at all these different issues in one lens to show how they're also interconnected, and how building resilience against climate change can also really help in loads of other different ways, such as health and social, with social benefits. We got inspired, or we felt like we had to start working on climate change in 2014. This was a time where Mombasa was experiencing a lot of flooding. People were losing their lives. There was health crises. There was lots of washing away of vital crops. And we felt like it was time for us to expand our work to meet the needs, the immediate needs of the community. And since then, with climate change and increasing drought, we found that we've had to do more and more of this work because it's becoming more and more of a pressing issue for the communities that we're working in.
Really kind of what drives the working around climate change is our alumni network, because it's young women in rural Africa who are on the front line of climate change, as we've heard already. They're the first to feel the effects of climate shocks, and they contribute so negligibly to any sort of greenhouse emissions in the area. So, you know, what we see as kind of Charlie and Alistair both alluded to as well is the huge effects that climate change has. So we see that it just pushes girls out of school, but it also destroys infrastructure, and it keeps communities in poverty, accelerates the cycle of poverty as well. I was actually in Malawi a couple of weeks ago visiting our programs, and I saw there the kind of devastating effects that Cyclone Freddy had on the communities we work with. And it's not just about kind of roads and infrastructure being damaged, which definitely does happen. It's homes being destroyed, it's kind of fledgling businesses being destroyed, it's crops being destroyed, and that livelihood's just completely gone. So it wasn't necessarily a kind of decision to start working in climate. It's something that we felt absolutely compelled to do, and our programs naturally developed in that way, because being community-led, being alumni-led, that's where the action needs to, that's where the work needs to happen, really.
I think the most helpful thing from our funder to get us started was that that connection with the University of Exeter. So that really gave us the knowledge that we needed, and it gave us kind of access to this world-class resource that we would never have had otherwise. And so I feel like when you're getting started, I think climate change is such a huge topic, and it can feel so overwhelming, and especially when you're looking at the challenges that are facing the people you're working with, you're thinking to yourself, how are you ever going to do anything to help this? Because the climate crisis is such an, as I said, such an overwhelming issue. So I think having that access to people who kind of study it day in and day out and can kind of really break down the problems and can help you find your USP and find how you can use your skills and your resources and what you do already to address climate. So for us, that was all about the behavior change, and it was about inspiring dialogue, and it was about helping people to see a better future. And so I think just having, connecting your grantees to resources and knowledge is something really, really helpful. I mean, obviously the big thing here is money, and these climate change projects are expensive. And because climate change is seeing the impacts takes a long time, you really need that longitudinal funding if you're ever going to be able to measure the impact of what you're doing. So I think that I've sort of moved on to tips. I think making sure that you're creating enough time for your grantees to be able to make that impact is really important, because I've seen instances, and we've even had this at SAFE, where someone has said, okay, well, we'll have a 1-year project or 1-year pilot project, and then the funding hasn't been there after that. And there are so many different reasons why it takes a long time to create change around the environment. So I think really, if you've got your trusted partners and you really trust their methods and what they're doing, really sticking with them over a long period of time so that they're able to overcome the challenges and they're able to really monitor what they're doing and create a kind of a database of impact that they can take to other donors is incredibly beneficial. So I think, yeah, longitudinal funding, access to knowledge, and then I think flexibility, I think, is the final thing that I would say is really important. I mean, if I look at where we are at the moment in Kenya, we've just come out of 4 years of drought and we've gone straight into an El Nino. The kind of interventions that people need during periods of drought and the types of interventions needed during an El Nino are so different, that if you had applied and you're halfway through an environment project right now, you would need your donor to be working with you to think, how can you adapt what you're doing to meet the needs of the community where they are. I mean, people at the moment are waist deep in water, whereas 6 months ago, all of their cattle had died. Although there's a lot of the same kind of livelihoods and resilience building education is needed, the kind of immediate relief and the immediate things that you need to do are going to be very different. So I think, yeah, those are my 3. I'd say longitudinal funding, access to resources, and a lot of flexibility.
The advice I would give is 3 things. Be careful, trust, and influence. So in terms of being careful, I'm sure the fact that you're attending this event speaks to you being sort of informed and progressive funders, which is great. But years of planning and careful trust building with communities can be wiped out in an instant when funders change their minds. So I would just say, really recognize the power that you have over people's lives and how much power can move when, you know, even small changes are made. So exercise that duty with care. Don't make sudden movements. As Alice said, be consistent, be reliable, give time, take time to listen and learn, and give notice when there's going to be changes. Consider the wider context. You know, what else is happening? Is everyone else following this trend to a new priority? What does that mean for the people and organizations that are still working on yesterday's priorities? And what does that ultimately mean for social equality and where power lies? So I would just say, you know, really question where you're needed most and where you can have the greatest impact. Consider the fallout of changes. In terms of trust, ask and listen to the people that you want to support, and trust the expertise of organizations that have been doing that for a long time. I know it can be tempting to demand innovation and trending and new, but the global majority still don't have basic human rights, and there are plenty of brilliant proven solutions out there that just need funding. We don't need the new idea to be presented to us. So, value and trust the expertise of organisations that are dedicating themselves to this work. And don't forget that charities need your support and will be scrappy. So highly restrictive criteria may just be putting more hurdles in the way of an organisation that is going to find a way around them anyway. Or worse, you might be forcing mission creep for organisations just to survive, to access that funding. So I would say know your goals and identify partners, build trust with them, and then stand by them. The organisations, especially working in universal education, gender equality, these really fundamental issues, and be flexible. Trust them to adapt around the challenges that they come across, including climate. We're in the business of going headfirst into problems, into challenges. So let us get on with the job, and just do whatever you need to do to kind of build that trust, to provide that flexibility. And then finally, back to influence. You do have huge power and influence as significant funders in this space. You're well connected. You can open doors that we can't. So within that sphere of influence, promote principles of trust and flexibility. But also, back to what's been helpful for us, make connections to other partners, other grantees, other specialists in this space. We've had previous partners do that, and we've then gone on to team up with NGOs and other partners on projects that have been complementary.
And it's that the climate issue affects everything, and so there's no point in funding an HIV program in a drought hit community if you're not then also helping them build their resilience to drought, because you're just not going to get anywhere if you're trying to do your programs on gender equality, on social issues, and you're not thinking about the fact that most of the people that we're all trying to support are dealing with the climate crisis on a very real level every single day. You're just going to hit a brick wall again and again and again. So I think about it in another way and think that you're just going to be throwing your money at issues and not ever properly solving them if you're not looking at climate work alongside what you're looking at, because there's nothing, I can't think of a single issue that isn't affected by climate change and isn't affected by the droughts, the flooding, unpredictable weather, food insecurity, and everything that comes with it. So I think don't look at it as if like you're taking money away from these other topics. Look at it as you are actually going to continue progressing with all these other issues, because you're dealing with this big sort of, not elephant in the room because we all know about it, but this big challenge which is now kind of at the center of all development work.